In September 1975, after 131 years as a boys-only institution, QC opens its doors to the girls. From my perspective as a relatively carefree 14-year-old about to enter into the fourth form, this was a very interesting development. To the best of my recollection, the move to admit girls to the school was met with widespread approval by my immediate peers. Not that they consulted us about anything back then. That's not how it worked in those days. But we in the fourth and fifth form did not have the immediate privilege of sitting alongside girls in our classrooms, since girls were only admitted to the lower school, fifth science, and lower and upper sixth. But we nonetheless eagerly awaited their arrival. From an adult perspective, 50 years later, it is highly likely that that feeling was not shared fully across the board, especially among those more directly affected, since everyone would have had their own individual challenges to deal with. Today, we have the privilege of hearing directly from some of those pioneers, the women who were there in 1975. And we'll also hear from the men who were witness to that historic occasion and who were directly affected. And we will get from them their perspective. Hopefully it's aligned with mine. It was a bold decision back then, in keeping with the politics of the time, which was aimed at the implementation of an egalitarian society and a lot of other socialist principles. For the young women who walked through the school's doors on that first day of the term into uncharted territory, this was probably the least of their concerns. They certainly did not know what to expect, and they could have no idea of the impact that they would create. The conversations today matter because this story isn't about policy or access. This story is about people. It's about what happens when barriers are removed and trust is placed in merit. It's about excellence that emerges when everyone has a fair chance at quality education. 50 years later, the evidence is overwhelming. QC continues to be a school of excellence, and not just academically. With girls in the majority at the school, I leave you to figure out what that statistic means. Today, we pause to listen, to learn, to honor, and to remind ourselves that the story, her story, continues with every girl who walks through the gates of QC today, carrying forward that legacy of breaking barriers and redefining what is possible. As the chairman of the board, I would like to take this opportunity to acknowledge the efforts of Mr. Clarence Trotz, the headmaster of the time. To the best of my recollection, he did not have a board to depend upon when he embarked on this undertaking of preparing the school for the coming of the girls. As a chairman, if you were to task me with that project, that undertaking today, I would not, that would be a significant undertaking, and I would probably have to rethink whether I would want to continue in my role as chair. The logistics of the whole exercise would have been overwhelming. I mean, I can only imagine what had to be done in terms of preparing the infrastructure of the school. And given the limited resources at the time, I can only bow my head to Mr. Trotz and commend him and his administrators for achieving that remarkable feat. I would also like to acknowledge QCOSA in bringing this event together, this series of events. They have certainly extended beyond belief what they can achieve when they set their minds to it. This series of events so far has been very successful. I've heard, I wasn't able to attend the opening and of the exhibition, but to all intents and purposes, it was a remarkable success, and I'm sure that the other events that follow will also be equally successful. So to QCOSA, I'd like to acknowledge your contributions and your efforts and commend you on a job well done. To our panelists, I want to thank you for sharing your stories with us today. And to everyone else joining us online, thank you for being a part of this very important occasion. Thank you.
Mr. Trotz?
Muted.
Mr. Trotz, you need to come
You're
off
still
of mute.
muted.
You're still muted.
You need to come.
I've asked him to unmute.
Mr. Trotz?
Not hearing you. We're not hearing.
I'm a novice at this new
There you
technology.
go. There you go.
Okay,
You're
we
good.
can
hear
you
now. We
Mr.
can hear you
Trotz?
now.
You have to forgive me. I'm 92 years old.
Wow.
And at that age, it'll be a marvel to be able to deal with the modern technology, wouldn't it?
We can hear you now. Go right ahead, sir.
Right. Now, I am going to read my remarks because my old brain won't be able to tell me what to say next. So let me read now what I've written here with my remarks. Now, we are meeting today to celebrate the momentous and very significant event which took place 50 years ago at our alma mater, Queen's College, on the first Monday of September 75. This, the first Monday of the month of September 75, was a red letter day in the history of education in Guyana. I do feel strongly, however, that before we celebrate an occasion such as this, we should first look further back and first recognize and then to reminisce on what prevailed in this particular context at Queen's and at the Bishop's High School before we celebrate what must be indeed a very important occasion. In our case today, we should look back in time and consider what was the position which prevailed before girls were admitted to Queen's College on that significant day in 1975. Did they, before that day, enjoy the same educational conveniences, and did they have the same opportunities as did their counterparts at Queen's? After all, they were the equivalent girls' school to Queen's College, and one would have expected that at the equivalent school to Queen's, the girls should or would have experienced the same or similar conditions as did the boys at QC, but as we should all be aware, that was not the case. Whereas boys at QC for decades before were enjoying ample opportunities to aspire to having, and in many cases did attain levels of education which enabled them to gain admission to universities abroad for tertiary education, the girls at the Bishop's High School never did in all the departments of study, but only in some. In these circumstances, then, to be offered the opportunity to be at QC after common entrance was a blessing to the girls in primary schools, and to those at the Bishop's High School in 75 also. At last, they were about to be put on the same plane of importance as the boys at QC. At last, they were recognized as being citizens who had a right to the same educational opportunities as did the boys at QC. I do feel, therefore, that we should begin by sparing a thought to those unfortunate women and girls who were denied this opportunity when the first girls at Queen's College were about to enjoy rather, on that first day in September 75. Let us first be well aware of this, reminisce, and then acknowledge that justice was only then about to be done to girls when the decision to introduce coeducation at Queen's was about to take effect. It is only after we have reminisced about what preceded coeducation that we can rightly rejoice over the change. We can rightly and properly celebrate the change. Girls at long last can compete with boys in identical circumstances. Girls can now enjoy all the privileges that the boys at QC had enjoyed for nearly a century and a half. The evidence of this is palpable. Our first girls have proved what before 1975 might have been thought of as conjecture. That is now fact. As I wrote some time ago in some impressions I gave elsewhere on the fact of coeducation at Queen's, we can now with conviction say that the door to equal education for girls and for boys, and for women and for men alike, is no longer closed or even only ajar. It is now truly wide open. Congratulations to the women of Queen's College. You have proved yourselves very worthy of the plaudits you have already received and will doubtless continue to receive far into the future. As I've said before, you have maintained the well-established traditions of ethos at our former school, and I feel sure you will continue to do so. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Trotz. Now we will transition to our first panel, being moderated by Karen Wharton.
Okay. Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. My name is Karen Wharton, and QC alum. I attended Queen's College from 1976 to 1981, and Durban House. Whoop. So today I feel really honored to be your moderator, the moderator for our panels today. We just heard from two very distinguished members of the Queen's College family. We heard from the chairman of the board, Marcel Gaskin, and we also heard from our very distinguished former headmaster, Mr. Clarence Trotz. I wouldn't say AKA, but I think we all know what the AKA is, right? But now, they've really, between these two gentlemen and others, they've really guided the school across the generations and will continue to do so. But now I'd like us to turn to the women and men who witnessed this transformation firsthand. We'll begin with the pioneering girls of 1975, and then we'll invite the boys who were there to join. It's going to be a conversation. We'll have Q&A. We might be running just a tad behind time, so perhaps we may reserve Q&A for the end of the panel. We'll see how it goes. But I want you to help me welcome my esteemed panelists, Corin Locke, 1975 to 1982, Shondell Nero, 1975 to 1980, Murphy Newton Henry, 1975 to 80, and Nadia Ramden, 1975 to 1981. Welcome, ladies. How are you today?
Great, thank you.
Great.
Thank you.
Doing well. Great, wonderful. So we're here to celebrate 50 years of Queens College, of girls attending Queens College. We know that girls took classes at Queens College prior to 1975, but it was only in 1975 that they were allowed, and I say allowed because that's actually the case, to enroll in this storied school. And you ladies were the pioneers. So I'd like to ask, and I'm going to throw it out, and whoever wants to answer can. I'd like to understand, going in, tell us, going in, what were your hopes or worries, if there were any, about joining Queens College as part of the first group of girls? Some of you were coming from Bishops, and some of you, well, Corinne, you came in through common entrance. So when you heard that you were now going to Queens College, what were some of your hopes, and what were your worries, if you had any?
So I can start first. I know that coming from Bishops, there were rumors about all the horrors we were going to face when we got into QC. The boys had, like we were told that the boys were rambunctious and that it would be terrible. And frankly, I didn't want to go, but we really didn't have a choice. And so when we received the letter saying we had to go to Queens College, I was somewhat disappointed because you worked hard in common interest to go to Bishop's High School and you were there, and now you had to leave. I don't think in my 11-year-old brain, I was thinking about what kind of education I was getting. I just knew that Bishop's High School was the top high school for girls, and I just wanted to remain there.
Thank you for that. Anyone wants to add?
Right. So I'll just first of all, thank you, Principal Headmaster Trotz. Thank you for everything.
Yes, I'm sorry, I should have said that too.
You have made me part of who I am today. Thank you. I do echo that. I mean, I remember when I heard that I was going to QC, I did feel a sense of rejection from Bishops, almost like they didn't want me anymore. And in my kid self, I thought, well, gee, I wasn't good enough for Bishops, so they were just kind of shoving me off to QC, right? For these other girls. I didn't know what to expect. I mean, I knew it was an all-boys school, and it was somewhat intimidating thinking about going there, adjusting to a new environment and everything. But, I remember walking in through those gates and all the boys just standing there staring at you and pointing, and it was overwhelming, because you didn't know what to expect. And no one took us at Bishops into class and said, hey, girls, you'll be going to QC and this is what you should expect, and reassure us. We didn't get that. Like Murphy said, you just got a letter or a notice, and next thing you know, you're walking through the gates into QC. And I must say, Headmaster Trotz, you did a great job welcoming us and helping us adjust to QC.
Sorry, Karen. I gotta add because it's totally different. So I really feel today, I still say it. I'm 60 and I still say it. I think they made co-ed for me because in 1975 I wanted to go to QC. Like I wanted to go to QC in 10th since I was leaving St. Gabriel's. My brothers were there. My father taught there. And the day I walked into that school was like the happiest day in my life. I was so excited. Sorry, just slightly different.
Great. So good to hear that, right? Good to hear that.
I would add on top of what Nadia said, the idea of no preparation from Bishops. Nowadays we have all these sort of counseling things for, transitions to things. It was like you got a letter and you were going there. I was not intimidated in the sense that my older brother went to Queen's College and from right through A levels and left in 73. So, and we were living in Kitty at the time, so it literally was just closer to get. I was riding my bicycle to QC from Kitty Post Office. So in terms of how I felt on the first day, I was sort of not knowing what to expect. but I definitely felt welcomed. I did not feel, and echoing Nadia, I definitely feel the headmaster, Mr. Trotz, and others. So I felt welcomed. I did feel like the boys were sort of not quite knowing how to respond. So some of them were sort of pointing and kind of awkward. But for me, going into the environment was I was perfectly comfortable because of the fact my brother was there, and the school had a good reputation. We did have these ideas that only certain girls were kept at Bishop's. There was this sort of unstated narrative, but that didn't really sort of bother me too much. So I was mostly okay at the beginning.
Good. Good to hear this. I think it was Nadia, you mentioned walking through and the boys staring and pointing and those kinds of things. Can someone describe what it felt like to step into a place where you knew going in it had been the physical space as well as the emotional, cultural space had been all boys, very testosterone driven for decades. How did it feel walking into that space, knowing that you were interrupting that tradition?
I think we had mixed emotions, you know. On one part, you were intimidated, right? It was a new school. You had to adjust the boys. And thank God you had some friends from bishops that you could lean on, these other girls who felt a little bewildered like you know. But then, Headmaster Truss was up there reassuring us, during assembly that we will be fine. And then you get into the class and you got to know the boys, and they were nice boys. I mean, we had a great class. I mean, there was a different kind of camaraderie. I think I probably had more friends going to QC than I would have at Bishop's. The boys really were very nice. And I think it was a good learning environment for us. And
Good.
it was good competition too, because I think one of the things about bishops is they concentrating on making you, was almost a bit like a finishing school too, right?
Mhm.
Turning you into a lady. And me, my QC was really focused on, our education, right? Our grades, and sort of trying to bring out the best in us to do well in the world. And, it was healthy competition, I think.
Good. So I'm going to jump off from that and ask, did you at any time feel like you needed to prove yourself, whether it's academically or socially? Was there pressure? Do you feel there was any pressure placed upon you by virtue of your gender? I'm going to throw that out to maybe Corin.
So I dove in completely and wanted to start a football team. And I thought that that would be really cool. And I rounded up some girls and we were going to start a football team. But I don't think QC was ready for girls to be in football. And so what they ended up saying was that you had to get permission from your parents to sign. The boys didn't have to have permission to make the football team or to play football, but the girls had to get permission. And someone went around telling the girls that their wombs were going to drop out if they played football, literally. So we couldn't get it. I was the only person who got my mother to sign the form that I could play. So it didn't get off the ground. It was the first time when I realized that I was a girl. And because other than that, it was like, there's nothing we can't handle. We could handle anything. But that was a challenge.
Yeah, I'll comment. I had prior to this panel, I had told Karen that I found that question um, not objectionable, but sort of problematic. I feel it's a very gendered question. Would you have to prove? Because I didn't feel that at all. I guess we were 13, coming of age in terms of gender identity. But I would say that I always liked going to school in general. So in terms of academic proving, I liked going to school and mostly did well in school. So I didn't feel like I had to prove something in terms of being a girl. And so even today, I find that question. There are real discriminated practices that still happen against women. So acknowledging that. But at the time, I didn't sort of feel like I had anything to prove. I just had to keep being, as good a student as I could be. And the curriculum was really excellent. Academic excellence was expected. So for me, that was not part of how I was thinking about the experience in terms of proving anything.
I think the teachers expected the same out of the girls and boys. It wasn't, they expected boys to do better in science than the girls. I think, they expected something very similar from both of us.
Yeah,
It was very
sorry,
high.
on my
So
part,
I'm really grateful that you guys paved the way, because when I got there, I did not know I was not one of the pioneering girls. So I just went from, co-ed primary school straight to Queens College, and I was ready to roll up my sleeves and just get in. And so I didn't feel like I needed to prove anything. So I think part of that might be because of the great job that you ladies did the year before. But I want to pivot a little bit to talk a little bit about, you were there for 5 years, at least 5 years. Did the school's culture evolve while you were there? Did you see any changes from the time you got there in 75 to when you left in 80, 81, or 82?
Yes, I would like to add my 2 cents if I can.
Can you kindly wait until Q&A, please? We're gonna come to open up in a little bit. Thank you.
Can I just mention one thing?
Yes, please.
This, I don't know if everybody remembers this, but as excited as I was to walk into the school, I then realized that there were a lot of boys who were not happy about this, not happy about girls. And it became the distraction in the classes. And this is my vivid memory, is that I think Mr. Trotz, I think the faculty decided to stop the classes for almost a week. And they brought guidance counselors in from all over the country, broke the classes up, and we met. But I feel like I'm the only person who remembers this, but I remember after this period where the guidance counselors talked, and I was in a class with Wallaby, and in a group with Wallaby, and he's like, I don't know why they bring girls here. But after that session, I feel like it became much easier, and I stayed all the way through A levels through 1982, and it just became the norm. Still challenging at times, but the norm. It was good.
Corinne, yeah, I didn't remember that thing with the counselors that you have mentioned that, and it's only now I think that talking to people in retrospect that I have come to learn that especially the older boys were not happy about the transition. I think the guys who were in our class or younger, it's like,
Very
hey,
much.
14 years old, hormones raging. I think they were like, hey, they're like right there. But I think for the older boys who went through 6 years of this all male environment, I think they sort of felt like this was sort of watering down. I don't know, or just it was somehow not the same. So there was a kind of an age difference in how the boys
Totally agree.
responded to them. But the boys in our level, I think I have a sense that they were fine with it, but it was the older boys. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah,
I
that's been
don't
my
recall.
experience as well.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I don't recall what Corinne was talking about either, and I don't recall the boys in my class expressing any kind of displeasure at us being there. What I found was that I personally I felt challenged in the classroom to perform and do better, and that might be because at Bishop's, even though I loved the school, I didn't want to leave. I had some challenges in Bishops coming from the country and coming into Georgetown and kind of feeling out of place. And when I got to Queens College, what happened was the things that girls placed the emphasis and importance on while I was at Bishop's, the boys didn't care about. Like they didn't care if your sneakers were dirty. They didn't care if your hair was unkempt. And me, my hair was fuzzy and it would be unkempt by the end of the day. And I remember being at Bishop's and feeling out of place because the girls were supposed to be, as Nadia said, it was almost like a finishing school. And so you were supposed to be just so. And I wasn't just so, and I wasn't prim and proper. I wasn't that kind of little girl. I was 11 years old walking into QC, and that was not me. And so I felt very much at home after getting over, the fact that I was rejected by bishops, so to speak. I felt very much at home, and I actually did better academically in that environment. Yeah.
Yeah, and to pivot on that, Murphy, I mean, I remember you from high school. I don't remember the counseling session Kareem was talking about. I do remember, I mean, I came from Novar High School, from Novar Primary School, so I came from the Myconi era, right? And I think that I've always been a bit of a rebel. I've always sort of tried to buck the norm. And I remember I also have a bit of a free spirit, and I remember going into, the QC, the class, and I thought our class we had a great class. The
Mhm.
guys were great. They were very supportive. We were friends. We would joke. We would be naughty together.
Mhm.
I think like in our class, we had a wonderful class. I remember it quite fondly. Now, the senior guys, it's possible that they may have had some angst and some issues with girls there, but it really didn't filter down a whole lot, I guess, unless we had detention or something because they were the prefects. But we had a wonderful supportive class.
Yeah. I want to echo this sort of theme that's emerging about bishops being the finishing school and because now in retrospect, I'm currently in the process of writing an ethnography about this whole experience, that the value systems between Bishops and Queens College became very clear to us, the ones of us who started at Bishops. And I think that was the fundamental difference. While Bishops also had academic excellence, there was a real strong focus on propriety and, behaving properly like a girl. So if you had any kind of free spirit or rebellious streak or just independent streak, it was really squashed. And I think QC, maybe because it was made for boys, it had these unstated values of, what boys and particularly boys were going to be leaders, because this was like the top school. All of those values of, independence and competitiveness and being sort of free and, confident and assertiveness. I think those values were just embedded throughout the school. And so the coolest person was not the jock like it is in the US. It was the person that was the jock and bright academically too.
Yes.
So I think it made a really big space for us girls because you could just be, because all of those values were already in place that were made for boys, which was very different at Bishops. Yeah. I don't know if anybody is Bishops in the audience because maybe I might be offending people right now.
You will.
It's your truth. It's your truth, Shondell. Look, there's so much ground to cover that, we probably need like all day to unpack some of these things. But at this point, I'd like to invite the three boys who were there to join the conversation. And so I welcome Dr. Ronald Chase, 1973 to 1980, Tony Harris, 72 to 79, and my good friend Hugh Hamilton, 71 to 77. Hello, fellas. Hello, boys.
Hello.
How are you?
Good.
Hi, how are you? Very well, thank you. Yes.
Good. So I'm going to put you guys in a little bit of a hot seat just for a moment. Not too hot, but you're used to it, right? I'd like to begin from the beginning with you. What were you told, if anything at all, about the girls coming to QC, joining QC before the year began?
Well, nothing. if I can just jump in right there, we were told that girls would be coming to the school, and that was the end of that. There was no ceremony, there was no counseling, there was no anything. We showed up in September, and the girls were there. Now, I would have to say, though, that I might be maybe not a very my experience might not have been very typical, because I happen to have been in the fourth form at the time. And as Marcel pointed out, the fourth forms were not integrated in 1975. So we were occupying a sort of liminal space where there were girls who were younger than we were from, forms 1 to 3, and then there were older girls in the sixth form. So my interaction with the girls at Queens was more or less confined to extracurricular activities and extracurricular spaces. So I interacted with the girls in the in the drama society, the music society, and in other such activities. And that transition was not particularly difficult to negotiate because we were still relatively young. Most of us had gone to had attended coeducational schools, until we went to Queens. We lived in a society where we interacted with girls. So it was not especially challenging, I think. But that was my own experience. I think it might have been different for those who had to deal with girls in the classroom, which was not something that was not my experience.
I'll add a few things, Tony Harris here. I was in the same class as Marcel. So when the girls came, they came to Form 3, and I went into Form 4. But we heard rumors that girls were coming, but nothing was explained to us at all. So the big changes were coming, and we felt that these girls have no idea what they're getting into. That's the way our guys view it. So, and we felt cheated in a way. I personally felt cheated, but we were excited because girls are coming. We're 14, and there's going to be girls at our doorstep. Which guy wouldn't like that?
Yeah, we didn't have any things said about the girls that were coming, nothing to expect. So we didn't know anything. And our focus during second form, as I was going into third form in 1975, our focus was who was leaving the school from our class to go to Bishop's. So we weren't really focused on the girls until day one. And of course, at that time, 13, 12 years old, like the guy said, we were all for it. We wanted to see the girls.
Good to know. And, Ronald, you bring in a very important point that we haven't really discussed up to this point. And that is, it was an exchange. So in order for the girls to come, some boys had to go to Queen's College, to Bishop's. And so sometimes, and we all know of some of them, you probably know all of them. And so I do want to take this moment to acknowledge those boys who, in essence, made it possible by having to move over to Bishop's. And so if any of them are in the room, I would like to acknowledge. I'd like to acknowledge you if you just identify yourself, because I have like a gazillion screens in front of me. So I'm not able to like scroll through to really identify you. But staying on you, fellas, for a moment, did the girls, those of you who had girls in your classroom, so I guess that would be maybe Ronald and Tony, did it affect the classroom dynamics? And for you, Hugh, having the girls in your extracurricular, your activities, drama club, music club, and so on, did it have an impact? Did their presence have an impact on the group dynamics? And if so, how?
Well, absolutely. Oh, yes. Go ahead, Ronald.
Yeah, the girls came into my class in third form. And of course, we were told in January or February that girls were coming. And any discussion we had about the girls was exactly that, would they fit into our class dynamics? And on day one, well, not day one is mostly assembly, but from day 2 on, the girls were so cool. We were surprised. We were shocked. First of all, they were more mature than us, and they were just as cool as us. So we were very happy to welcome them in, and the class dynamics was not affected at all.
Yeah, I was in Ronald's class. Yeah.
Yeah.
Good, good. And so maybe I should start. I'll bring everyone in for this one. Was there a moment? I know you were all like teenagers, right? Maybe you weren't thinking deep thoughts at the time, but was there a moment when you realized that this was, the impact, that this was a big kahuna, so to speak, a big change? Did the import of that, of the integration or the co-education, did you recognize it at the time? Or what are your thoughts? And I open it up, boy, to any of you, whoever wants to take it, before I start calling out. Go ahead.
Okay.
You're right. So I'm not sure exactly when I realized it. I think after maybe settling in for a few weeks, you realize that you were at one of the most prestigious institutions in the country, and that really was a big deal. And you were rubbing elbows with, future leaders, future, people who would make an impact in the world, right? And it wasn't your classmates or the people who were at school, it was the ones who came before you that had made an impact in the world that you were in awe of, and Headmaster Trotz, he was wonderful because he was, he would remind us, time and time again about this opportunity we have and this great institution we were in and our history. And looking back, I think it was very impactful. I think, going to QC, I will forever treasure that because I think it just really made me persevere, aim beyond the stars because, I was taught that I could go far and beyond, that I had the ability. I wasn't held back, I could reach my full potential and beyond. And I don't think every institution really can offer you that.
Yeah, I agree with Nadia. I mean, going to QC, when you walk into the auditorium, there were these, I don't know if they're still there, I haven't been back to QC in a number of years, but there were these plaques on the wall with all the Guyana scholars, and you could see the then president of the country, his name was on there, and you could see other names that you'd recognize. And then we would have, I remember Remembrance Day and the celebration, and those plaques were on the other side of the wall when they put wreaths on those walls of the men that fought in World War I and II. And so you kind of felt like you were walking into a school that had this legacy that you wanted to carry on. And so it made you feel just as, I don't want to say important, but it did kind of lift your spirit and made you know that you were in an institution that had deep roots, a long history, and you had to carry that on. And so I enjoy telling people I went to QC. I don't tell them I went to Bishop's, even though I was there for a year. When people ask me where I went to school, I went to QC. Yeah.
Murphy, you just made some, not so good friends, right?
I'm
But I think
very
you have broad
sorry.
shoulders, you can manage. So I know that
Thank
when
you.
I listen to what Mr. Trotz,
Sorry, Karen, I think you was going to say something.
say that?
Yeah.
You was going to say something.
Oh, you.
Yes, I just wanted to say briefly that my appreciation for both the challenges and the opportunities that the girls at QC would have faced, and the journey that the girls would have had to undertake. That appreciation really took off in my final year at Queen's, by which time I had been joined at the school by my much younger sister, Jackie, who had come into the first form. And by the end of my final year, I was no longer Hugh Hamilton, but I was being referred to as Jackie Hamilton's brother. And you know, people like you, Karen, Dawn Holder, and others in your cohort, you know, I had an opportunity at that time to be introduced, to be able to look at the experience somewhat tangentially, or, you know, through your eyes. And that certainly deepened my appreciation for the significance of that transition that was taking place at Queen's. Yes.
Karen, just to quickly here, QC always had brilliance and tradition, but I think that when the girls came, it gave it balance. That's one of the things that I noticed, because like the girls kind of softened the edges. The guys were tough and rough, and the girls softened the edges. The other thing, the second item, is that I realized that something significant was happening when QC would be into the inter-school sports and so on, and all different competitions, and girls were part of that, because at first it was only boys. So I got to see that QC, the tradition has changed, and now we're being represented by girls, and we can see things being different and better.
Oh, that's interesting perspective. Thank you, Tony. Does anyone else want to add to that?
I would add there was also one difference with bishops, is that at bishops, all the teachers were female. So for the first time, we had male and female teachers I don't know if bishops, I'm sure that's changed now, but at the time we were at bishops, it was an all-female student and all-female staff. So at
was part of the finishing school part of it too, you know.
You know,
she's running with this finishing school theme.
I got pushed back on the finishing school. Go, Hugh.
Go ahead. No, I was just going to say that's a great point that Shondell just made, because I often say to people that my appreciation for working in an environment with women in authority is something that was honed at Queen's College, because even though we did not have many female teachers, those we did have were very strong, influential, dynamic, but they were also people like Esther Rollins, extremely maternal. Esther Rollins practically adopted me after my mother died, you know, and didn't speak to me for nearly a year after I failed French the first time around. You know, so you know, and of course we also had, you know, teachers like Avis Joseph, you know, in music.
Oh,
Olivia
Benita Bone
Benjamin.
Harris, amazing history teacher. I mean, she was badass history teacher. Benita Bone Harris. Yeah.
Absolutely. So that too was an important part of that experience, and that helped among us boys at the time to develop an appreciation for having women in positions of leadership and authority. Yes.
Yeah. I would add I was thankful for that, because I became the first female house captain in Percival House, and also deputy head prefect, because Reza Bacchus was the head prefect under, and at that time that was sort of the highest girls position in sixth form. So those opportunities for leadership were there in a very healthy way, I think.
Shondell, do you think, or all of you actually, do you think that the presence of the strong female teachers helped develop your leadership skills? Or was there any correlation? Or
I think it's just part of it. I just think the infrastructure, the opportunity was there. We were not excluded from any activity. And I think the fact that the possibility to participate in whatever, the drama club, the tour club, stage society, whatever, I think this is a question of access. I think just having the opportunity to get in those positions, and the teachers as well, just created, you know, a space for, like I said, just to be as good as you can be. Yeah.
And you know, I just want to add that, you know, when I look back at the world at this time, and we didn't know this, there was a lot of inequality with women throughout the world. You look at the US, you know, women couldn't have their own bank accounts at the time, you know, so there was a lot of inequality, but we didn't feel it in high school. I mean, we walked through the halls and right away we were told we were equal to the boys, that we could achieve the same things. And I think that was huge in that era. That really was huge. I mean, we were way ahead of our times, in terms of women rights, women being able to achieve milestones. We were way ahead of that. And I thank Headmaster Trotz and the teachers there because they did not hold us back.
Mm,
I'm going to piggyback on what you said, in that the female teachers we had were like alpha females, right? The Miss Rollins. So they really instilled in you,
Yeah.
you felt their power, you felt their power. So it was good for them to be there for us to transition into the workforce where they were alpha females to deal with. So yes, it was good to have those teachers.
And
Yeah.
I'm gonna agree with that because, and also too, there was never any difference between a female teacher and a male teacher.
Right.
You could have excellent both. Like one wasn't lesser than the other.
And everybody had nicknames too.
Exactly.
Corinne, I
Equally.
agree with you. I didn't see any difference or think of any difference between the female and the male teachers. So, Karen, I couldn't answer your question about the difference at all because I thought them as the same.
Good.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I agree with that last remark. Yeah, I didn't see a difference. A teacher was a teacher. You had to give them the same respect and you had to get your work done.
yeah, I think it's important to have, particularly at that age, to have strong female role models. And when I look at my peers, the ones who were there, women and men, but particularly the women, you talk about Queen's College at the time, and I'm sure now too, allowing you to be yourself. So being yourself, and while you're being yourself, you're seeing a model of what strong leadership is, right? And I think I know it impacted me. I'm really grateful for that. I know that there are some current students on the call. So what would you want the current students of Queen's College to know about 1975 or the period that you were there?
It was very exciting.
And you never have to hide your bushel.
Nope.
Hide your light under the bushel. You just be who you are.
Yeah.
Yes, and we had a great opportunity, and all of us or most of us took good advantage of it, and you should do the same.
Yeah. Endless possibility. It was just possibility to grow, possibility to imagine. I just think it was years of, very positive and hopeful years. You just felt you could just be.
And I think it was also a great place, a great place for the coming together on equal terms of people from very disparate backgrounds and economic and social class. I think that is an aspect of the experience that we don't often talk about. As a country boy coming from Pleasance, graduating, coming from St. George's Anglican, which was a school that did not produce more than two Queen's College students in a year, as someone of modest economic means at the time, moving into that environment, and also I think about the interracial and interethnic collaborations that we had, where in my recollection at Queen's College, race and ethnicity were never significant factors in the relationships that we had. We were able to transcend economic and social class in Queen's College in a way that I think would have been difficult to navigate outside of that environment. And so I'm extremely grateful for that experience. And for the realization that most of us derived from it, that it really didn't matter where you came from. What mattered was where you wanted to go and how you were going to get there. And and the fraternity and of course a sorority as well that emerged from that experience.
Yeah,
I would just like to add, I would say that progress starts small, and sometimes it takes just a few brave people walking into a place that wasn't built for them. Because the girls made QC evolve, and I'm happy that I got a chance to witness that.
Great.
I would add to that also that in 1975, and I don't know what the culture is like now, but Queens College was a family, right? We had competition between the classes, between the houses, but that was competition like brother and sister competition. But we were a family. We took care of each other. We looked out for each other, whether it's on the street, in a party, in the movies. We recognized each other, and we shared that experience together as one big family.
And I think the evidence of that is here now. I'm still very close friends with the people from 1975 to this day, even though we have lived in different countries, gone to different universities. The fact that, I tell colleagues at work in New York, I'm going to this gala event for QC, people I've known for 50 years. And it's like, wow, this is something not that common in the US, where people maintain high school friendships. I think here people tend to maintain college friendships, but not high school friendships going back to like 10 years old. So I think the proof is in the pudding there, that those relationships, those family that Ronald talked about, have been maintained to this day.
Yeah. So
I would just say, when I speak to some of my friends, I say the cult is still strong.
The cult is still strong. So on that note, I'd like to bring in our colleagues, right? And entertain some of the questions. I know that there is one question that has been asked, and I think Mr. Trotz is the perfect person to answer. And that is, how were the boys who were transferred to bishops, how were they selected? So maybe we can bring Mr. Trotz in to answer that.
Well, there was no firm sort of guide given to us. It was left to our, let's call it, experience. And most of the time, I consulted with the staff to find out who were the people that they thought might be asked to go to bishops. I didn't do it all on my own. In fact, nothing that I ever did to bring the girls in was done by me alone. I always consulted my staff. So they were my chief advisors as to who might be asked, not forced, but asked of their own accord to go to school, to go to Bishop's High School. Nobody was coerced at all. Nobody was coerced. So I don't think I had any questions to answer about why is it you sent my child to Bishop's. Because everybody who agreed to go to Bishop's went there more or less of his own accord. And a little bit of persuasion, but no coercion. That's the main thing.
Good. Thank you for that. Are there any questions, any other questions? Let me go through. Amala, are there any questions that you would like to bring to the forefront?
That was the main question. Several people asked it. That was the main one.
Okay. All right.
And I think Vishnu had a question. Did Vishnu had a question earlier on?
Vishnu?
Yeah. He wanted to talk. Let me see if he's still there.
Is there another panel?
Yes, he's still there.
Yes. So if there are no other questions for this, I mean, listen, we're not long enough right away. I just want to bring in the other, move the program on. So if folks if there are any other questions that you think of subsequently, we will definitely entertain them as we.
Karen, Vishnu is logging on now.
Well, okay, I'm here. The reason why I want to add my comment, I was transitioning in from Central High School to Queens College in '75. I had a mixed class in my.
Vishnu, do you have a question?
Yeah, he was asking.
Yeah, I think he got cut off.
He got cut off, it seems.
Okay. All right. So when he comes back, so I'd like to thank you so much for your time and your willingness to participate in this celebration. And so I'm going to hand it back to Michelle. Please stay
before you go,
because there may be additional questions subsequently. So please hold, please stay. All right, we'd appreciate it. Back to you, Michelle.
Thank you, Al.
Righty, thanks so much. We'll now transition to our spoken word presentation. Akila and Soraya. So we'll add them, we'll spotlight them now.
I never truly understood what it meant to be a girl. I was told my hair should always be primped and curled.
Young ladies must be seen and never heard. Your curves, your greatest asset, your intellect, best keep blurred. They claimed that to be a girl was to follow the rules, speak when you're spoken to, never be rude.
Accept less, dream small, never dare to complain, because boys will be boys, but girls must behave.
I will not follow in their quiet, compliant trend.
This is what a girl becomes when she refuses to bend.
To be a girl is to trailblaze.
A pioneer of my own age.
To barge into rooms built to keep me at bay.
I am more than what's mapped in blood or bone.
I ask the how, the why, I think on my own.
To be a girl is to lead, inspire, innovate, and though I oft stand uninvited, I shall not flee my fate.
To be a girl is to mirror the image of those who came before, the free thinkers and dream linkers who have run this rocky road.
Whether in heels that click or feet bruised and worn, they stood their ground through every storm.
Ensuring that I knew that to be a girl is to be a woman who holds her head high. To be a girl is to rise, to soar, to fly.
Not to ask for permission, but to own the sky.
They called me bossy because I dared to lead.
Too fast because I moved at lightning speed.
Told me to smile, to sit, to hush, to shrink.
But I crack the mold with every thought I think. I am more than a pretty face, more than these delicate curves that twist and sway. I am the light that turns night to day.
I am not a fragile being wrapped up in lace. I am power unbound and unyielding grace.
So call me weak, delicate, small. I laugh as I rise towering over it all.
To be a girl is not to dance to any mundane tune, but to write my own song, be my own muse.
I am not just glitz, glam, or pearls.
I am the truth of what it means to be a girl.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, ladies. It's now time for our second panel discussion. So we'll add to the conversation Alyssa, Disa, Nikita, Sheridan, Lachmi.
Welcome, welcome, welcome. Hello, Alyssa, how are you?
Glad to be here. Glad I can get online. Thanks to all of the organizers.
Thank you. Thank you for being here. Disa, Sheridan, Lachmi, welcome.
Hello.
So we heard from the pioneering boys and girls what it was like in 1975. And they were there, I think Corn was there up to maybe 1982. So we've heard about those initial years. But it's been 50 years. So we want to hear from you, representing the decades since, what it was like, what your experiences were. And it's great. It's kind of like Akila and Soraya is making it easier for me. So I want to start off by asking each of you, very briefly, what was it like, or what is it like to be a QC alumna, to be a QC girl?
Lisa, we're the old ladies, so maybe we should go. You start.
So who's gonna go first? Alyssa, tag, you're it.
Go, Lisa.
What does it feel like to be a QC alumna.
What is it like to be a QC girl? When you think of that, what does it mean to you to be a QC girl? And
You know,
anyone, go ahead.
I think we'll get into a discussion later, but I think it is the good and the bad. I think when I think of what it means to be a QC girl, it's you know, I live in Toronto, and we had Arundhati Roy a few weeks ago speak at the university. She was talking about her book, her latest memoir, and there's one part of it where she talks about being applauded for her achievements, but she had a younger brother who didn't do as well and was always being punished. And the lesson that left her with was that every time she is applauded, she always thinks about the person who's being punished quietly in another room. To be a QC girl for me is about recognizing the extraordinary privilege that we had at what is still considered to be one of the top schools, if not the top school in the country, and we make a lot of this. But it is also to recognize that saying that always reproduces a system in which our privilege is often coming at the cost of someone else's absence of that, or a lack of access to the kinds of opportunities that we were given. And it wasn't something that I saw at the time, but I think it's something that I really try to carry with me now. And I think that that tradition was always also there at QC. We just don't talk as much about it as we should.
Well, I talk about it a lot, actually, because I mean, I think I've probably, since being a QC girl, have spent the last few decades trying to redefine myself as something other than a QC girl, especially in Guyanese circles, because I was very much a QC girl. A pot salt, as my sisters used to say, where QC was concerned, very central in everything. You know, it's got to be captain of the house, on the debate team, senior prefect, editor of the paper, anything that needed volunteering for, pot salt was there. So I really dove into QC, and even my husband, who's Canadian, you know, knows everything about QC, because whenever we meet people who knew me from then, it always comes up. So he's like, oh yeah, I know she went to QC, kind of thing. But I always say that QC was the source of my confidence and also the source of my anxieties. It really was the place where I found my greatest strengths, and also where I experienced things that I still grapple with to this day. So yeah, it's I feel like it, without a doubt, it is the most defining institution I've ever been a part of. And it's when Elisa was talking about, you know, it being, you know, such a place of privilege and consider, and when we were at QC was surely considered the best, you know. And I work at a school now, University of Southern California, at a school, the School of Cinematic Arts, that's considered the best in the world. And I find myself thinking about my QC days a lot when I'm dealing with students there, because I'm trying to, you know, to boost the confidence and assuage the anxieties at the same time, all the time. So yeah.
Thank you. Does anyone else want to take a go at it?
I would. What it means to me to be a QC girl is to have been nurtured to remain strong and very confident and bold. In fact, when we entered QC in 97, the girls outnumbered the boys. And so when I entered QC, the mindset and what was nurtured was anything the boys could do, the girls could do better. And that is something that has transitioned in every aspect of my life. And I wear it as a badge of honor to be a QC girl. And there is absolutely nothing that I do that I don't remember my QC days. And even in my career, you walk into a room and it is just like a club. You from QC, so people just reminisce when they get together that they're from QC. And I've even been part of circles where they just started singing our school song at random places. So we wear it as a badge of honor, and it is something that I am very privileged to have been part of. And to this day, I think being a QC girl also means excellence and leadership. And I think a lot of the skills, especially in excellence and leadership, we got and were nurtured through QC.
Good. I'd like to hear Sheridan. You're the most recent graduate. What was being a QC girl in your era? What is it like? What does it mean?
I don't think there was any specific like notion to my era, because I feel like I felt that our era of QC girls was like the most integrated. So to be a QC girl was like you just have your little pigtails, you're going to school, and then when your mom's friends like hear like, oh, you're going to QC, it's like a badge of honor in itself, because they know how hard you would have had to work to get there, just as any other individual. And I feel as though outside of that, like when you go into the working world and especially leaving the country, because I'm presently based in Jamaica right now, and to hear people say, oh, you're from QC, they already know that name. And there's a lot of expectations that come with that, because they know that once you come from QC, you're really a top dog in itself.
So I know, Nikita, I wanna bring you in, but right before we get there, Sheridan. So, we go, you're in Jamaica, people hear you from QC and they have certain expectations. Is that a blessing or a burden?
I think it's a blessing. I would not look at anything that I would have done in my life as a burden, because if I were to go about life thinking about that, then it would feel like I was not cherishing what struggles my family would have had to gone through to put me where I am today. So I really think it's a blessing, and I'm proud of my alma mater, and I'm proud of all of the struggles that the pioneering girls would have had to face, and every other person who would have made rounds in establishments to put QC on the map.
Great. Thank you. Nikita, anything to add to that?
I'd just like to say, like piggybacking off of what was said, so I came into QC in 2000, and so at that point it was 25 years of girls at QC. Everything felt very integrated, and to be there for me, it was a great honor, and I felt proud to be part of the great institution. Being there too, I also there's always that expectation of excellence, because that's the tradition of the university. And so I was just very happy to be there and to be nurtured and to, gain all these skills that then took me on and helped me to do all the amazing things that I've been able to do thus far.
Thank you. Thank you. So we heard from the pioneering girls that there were no, or they felt that there were no expectations, gender-based expectations. You would have, Alyssa, you kind of like bridge that group and this, a little bit of this group, right? But let's go with this, right? Did that mirror your experience?
That's a really good question, Karen, and I think it's a complicated one. I mean, and I think we all come in with our own specific positions. I actually heard the last panel, and I don't fully agree with my colleague Hugh Hamilton on this lovely, romantic, everything sort of fit in, and everyone blended in, and everyone was just like, getting along. I actually came in, it was understood that I was going to go to QC. My mother had gone to Roses, and my brother was there. And the biggest crisis was that everyone was going to call me Little Garth, and I must pretend that I'm a cousin and not related to him, because he was too embarrassed to have his sister to school. And we would meet on Cam Street and go home, but we were not to talk to each other at all. And then the first day I got there, it was like Little Garth. So there's a way in which I do think that for those of us coming in, I came in 1978. there was like 3 years of girls. First of all, I remember girls taking me under their wing. Artist Vals, I remember particularly clearly. She was a third former, and I actually had a big crush on her. And she and her friends sort of took me under her wing. I was a little first former. Shondel's sister, Cheryl Nehru, was my form prefect. She was scary as hell. Really pretty with a little afro, but scary as hell. And then we had, we had girls who were in all bigger classes or your form prefects. So there were those role models that you were speaking about on the last panel. And then there were also the incredible teachers, Miss Rollins, Miss Blake, who is on the call, was such an important English teacher for me. And her attention to grammar prepared me completely for the extraordinary experience I had with Pat Fredericks in sixth form. Was the best teacher I ever had. And then there were also the male teachers, Mr. Insinali, who kept failing me, and that's how I got a B in physics, because I was so determined to prove him wrong. Miss Godette in Needlecraft, I was a Dunces Needlecraft student. That was the only class I ever failed. So I don't think I had a sense of anything other than my capability and possibility. But I want to say that it wasn't just because I was a girl. I want to also make the point that it was because I was also a middle class, bred girl coming into Queen's College with a lot of privilege. It isn't as simple as a boy versus girls thing. There are boys in the class who came from out of town. There are boys in the class who were working class. I remember distinctly one of them talking about in later years, his first experience of me speaking as a first form. And this is not something I'm proud to admit, and how completely bougie and out of touch I was. I was talking about all these places I'd visited, and he was like, I barely left Linden to come to QC. So there were differences of class and all of these things that I think make it harder than just saying the division was between girls and boys. QC was also a very homophobic school. And I think for boys in particular, because girls could be closeted in a way that queer boys were not, it was a really miserable place. And I can speak from experience because I know that I would have participated in some of the homophobic taunting as a student at QC. So I'm saying that it was an amazing experience, but it was also very complicated, and complicated in ways that aren't simply reducible to a girl versus boy division.
Although
Good afternoon,
remember
Karen.
having some of the girls versus feeling some of the girls versus boys division, especially as a girl who was kind of considered a leader, that there was, a lot of pushback from boys, and I remember specifically hearing phrases like QC is a boys' school and Bishop's is a girls' school, meaning that, QC is the people who would do best there are the boys versus the girl. And I remember that a girl in who I won't name because, not my story to tell, being bullied for coming in first in a class and crying because there were boys who thought that they should have come in first, and she was being bullied because of that. So yeah, I think there was. What I agree that there wasn't, especially with the girls who were like in my circle, is that we never thought that the boys were better than us. There was never any feeling that we couldn't do as well as the boys. But they're definitely throughout, and I went all the way through sixth form. Throughout, there was a competitiveness that sometimes, was voiced about girls versus boys.
Thank you. Lakshmi or
Good afternoon, Karen.
I'm not sure who is speaking, but would you kindly mute until after the panelists are done?
Sure.
We'll entertain Q&A then. If you have a question, kindly drop it in the chat and we'll try to get as many as possible. So I'd like to bring Lakshmi, Nikita, and Sheridan into the conversation. We heard what Disa and Alyssa had to say. And Alyssa is exactly right. Nothing can be reduced to simply gender or race. Most of these things, intersect. But I'd like to hear from you what your experiences were.
Well, I would go first. For our time, and when I started, I was part of the group that had just a couple of weeks in the school and then it burned down. And so for us, when we started, I would say it was a very healthy competition between the boys and the girls. And like I said, the girls, especially from my 1B class, we always felt whatever the boys did, we did it better. And when the school burned down, there was just such devastation, like literal tears, because, you know, we were uncertain of what the future held for us. And this great school with, you know, such great milestones for us to reach, we were wondering how that would affect us and our future. I would like at this time to recognize Ms. Blake and Ms. Gemrolier, and I believe that the set of teachers that we had just helped us to go from a place where I think we forgot about boys against girls. And it was just, we will pull together and we will persevere and we will get through this together. And so what you found is when we moved to the South Rumbelt School, where, you know, we didn't have like a designated area to play cricket or a designated area to do volleyball, you would find at the lunch break, the boys and the girls, especially in our class, to just pass the time. We're outside, we're playing in the grass, just trying to get through a time that was difficult for everyone and trying to focus on studies. And so I would say that we moved from a very healthy competition into everybody just trying our best to work together to get through a really difficult situation. And then eventually we got into a routine where our healthy competitions re-emerged. And so again, I would say the girls always kick the boys' butts. So I would just see it as healthy competition. And so we didn't feel the pressure of the pioneering girls. And I feel that it is because they paved the way for us. And we must thank them, because if they were not as strong as they were when we came in, we would have probably been feeling the exact same things that they were feeling and have those experiences. So we must thank the pioneering girls for opening the doors and breaking the glass ceiling so that when my time reached, I felt nothing of other than being welcomed and other than being a girl who could do anything she put her mind to. Thank you.
So Lakshmi, and Nikita and Sheridan, Disa and Elisa, bear with me one moment. Lakshmi, you mentioned something that this is the first time it's coming up in our conversation today. When the moment when the school had the fire, that was a pivotal moment, right? And you were there. I'm not clear on what transpired. So it burnt down over the weekend, and then what happened? Could you just briefly tell us, take like, if you can, 30 seconds, a minute, and just let us know what happened?
So, well, we went to school normal on Friday, and over the weekend, I was living in Camerville at the time, and news spread so quickly that QC was on fire. Like you could stand in our veranda and look up and you see the flames. And there was such devastation. It moved to the point that Monday morning, even though we didn't know exactly where we had to go, we showed up at school. We showed up there to see what was left of our school. And the administration at the time, I would say, together with the Ministry of Education, they did an excellent job in getting the parents together immediately and say, look, we have a plan. And so these children who have been displaced will be moved to another location. And the transition between such devastation and the new location, I would say it was expedited. I would say that in terms of loss of learning, there was none. More so, there was just a lot of emotional scars because students were just not sure what was going to happen to them and whether this prestigious institution who guaranteed so much, and for every story of that old building that burned down, when you started there, you wanted to go to the stage room, you wanted to go to the different places. And some of us, because it had just been weeks since the new term has started, we never got to visit some of those places before they burned down. So there was a lot of regret too, like there was in the auditorium, badminton hall. So we never really got to play on that. Certain things we never got to do because the school burnt down. And so there was regret. But even though there was that regret, the school was able to offer us both academic and sports, even though we may have had to go to a different ground or a different location. But I would say they did their best to ensure that we didn't lose as much as we thought we would have lost in the fire.
Thank you. So Nikita, in your time, were girls encouraged to participate in sports at the same level that boys were?
I think we definitely were. So I had a kind of not great experience in that I was part of the girls cricket team. I think I was in probably third or fourth form, probably third form. And so we had a boys team, we had a girls team, and of course, like we had one PE teacher, I think Wilson DaCosta at the time. If the girls had a game, like whoever had a game, the PE teacher would go with them. But there was one unfortunate day when the girls and the boys had a game at the same time. And so Mr. DaCosta went with the boys. I think for our team, I think the 12 of us and probably an older student went, and like all we had was what we had. So we had our gear and whatever water and food that you had, that's what you had. And I remember we bowled first, bowled them out. And then when we went into bat, I remember like we were out there batting. I was actually at the crease batting. We were doing well, almost, on the point of victory. And I was super thirsty, signaled to the bench to try and, for somebody to run some water out to me. And there was no water. Like the pitcher and stuff had gone off with the boys. And it was the older student that was there. He actually used his own money and bought us some water. And so that was unfortunate, but I think it was also like at the time in the country, right? We didn't really have much support for girls in cricket. There was like competitions at primary school and high school, but further than that, there wasn't much support. And so after that, like, I sort of stopped playing cricket. And then a few years later, of course, that's when the big push came. And then we had like a West Indies team and a national girls team and stuff. And so that was unfortunate, but I think like in terms of athletics and everything else, there was definitely support there. But as with all things, right, resources are finite. So yeah.
Thank you. Dr. Trotz, I come to you. You smile. Do you think you brought up the issue of class and kids coming from the country? And, I'm a country girl too. I came from the Backless. I know Murphy came from Buxton, and Nadia, I think she mentioned I think she was from Jamaica, I'm not sure. Do you think Queen's College, do you think the institution handled the class differences as well as an institution at that time could have? Did it exacerbate certain issues? How do you think QC handled the class?
I don't think we have enough time on this panel to discuss that. So, I would just say, look, it's very clear that these schools, whether it's Queen's College in Guyana, Campion in Jamaica, Combermere in Barbados, Convent or Convent in Trinidad and Tobago, these schools were set up by the colonial powers to create a cadre of leaders, right? So it was a place where you came in and you are molded into a particular cadre, which suggests that anyone could be that, but it's a very selective process. And we still do it, right? We still have this common entrance, this sort of, we could pretend as much as we like, but it's a really kind of cruel exam that they had us take at 9 and 10. I came into Queen's College at 10 years old, to be selected for these schools. So QC was a place where once you came in, this was what you were meant to be. But I guess what I was trying to say is that could not erase these differences. I mean, if you read The West on Trial by Chetty Jagan, he talks very much about what it felt like to come into Queen's College. And I distinctly remember when Mr. Trotz, it's so wonderful to see you here, Mr. Trotz, my cousin. And I was in second form. I was telling my sister I had to beat up a girl in second form, and Mr. Trotz nearly caned me. But I don't think he did. And I don't think it had anything to do with the fact that he was related to me. But he got moved in when I was in second form. I'm sure some of you may remember this was a period of time where there was, political struggles and head teachers were being moved around. And QC shut down. There were all of these protests that were taking place in the school. But the point I'm making in relation to class is that Mr. Trotz was replaced by Patrick Taylor, who was actually an incredible teacher. He had one arm, and in true QC fashion, he was christened the one-arm bandit. But a big part of the rejection of Mr. Taylor, if we are to be honest, wasn't just about the political moment, but was also because he came from Essequibo. What is an Essequibo man come in to teach us at QC? And I distinctly remember the whole school getting shocked because he did talking at the General Assembly and talked about people in the prefect's balcony, and everybody bust out into a big laugh. And he was silent when we had finished laughing. He said, BALL is ball, HALL is hall, CALL is call, BALCONY is balcony. I will see you back at 3 o'clock this afternoon. But a lot of the laughter and so was the class thing, that who was he to come be head of the school? So I'm simply saying that there are moments like that that tell you about the hierarchies. And those are things that we need to talk about. We shouldn't just be here celebrating how it was so great and it made us the best and all of that. There's danger in that narrative. And it's really important to me for younger generations to be aware of that.
Elisa, you and I sound like the naysayers, but I will agree. To me,
I love QC, but I love QC
too.
wholly.
Like I said, everybody in my life know I went to and love QC. Even people who know nothing about Guyana or QC or whatever know. But to me, if you followed a certain script, you did well at QC. But as soon as you step out of that or wanted to step out, Nikita, I am so happy to know that y'all had a girls' cricket team, but I remember when we couldn't have a girls' cricket team, so, or a girls' football team, or when, the boys got to go play sports in the afternoon and there was nothing for us to do. I did not know how to play rounders or salt, and so I was out of anything, so and also, as somebody who is a practicing devout atheist, I remember, Muslim and Hindu kids getting punished for not saying the Lord's Prayer at assembly, or, not wanting to. So like I said, it was very much if you were willing to follow the line and do what was expected of you in a way that it was expected of you. QC was all flowers and rainbows. And also the kids who didn't do well in class, who were the quote unquote dunces, who failed the tests and were threatened with getting left back and all of that. I think about people like that in all the time I was a little bit traumatized by those kids' experience in first form, who when we went to second form got left back. And there were a couple of people who had been left back before, and the idea of them getting left back again was both, like comedy and trauma. So it is, it's both sides of a coin that has to be acknowledged when you come from such a rarefied, place as QC was and probably still is, in Guyana.
So clearly this is not enough time for us to unpack many of the things that we really do need to unpack, right? And so today is an opportunity for us to begin that conversation. There are issues of class, there are issues of race, and there is, of course, sexual orientation, sexual identification, right? Gender identification. And we need, and those are nuanced conversations that absolutely need to be had. But it's 2:50 and they're yelling at me, telling me to wrap it up, right? So I'd like to bring in the other folks, right? I'd like to bring in, if there are any questions. I do know that there are some wonderful teachers that are on the line. I am hesitant to call them out because I know I'm gonna miss somebody, and then they might want to put me in detention. But I do know that Mrs. Blake is here. Of course, Mr. Trotz is here. Who else is here? Mrs.
Her
Rutherford.
first principal, yes, Mrs. Rutherford.
Okay, anyone else?
First female principal.
First female principal. Anyone else that I'm missing? Okay.
Not that I was made aware of.
Okay, so
Was the first female principal Karen? Because it was Miss Downer was the first acting principal.
Acting.
Okay.
Ryan, acting. You know, we make these distinctions, right?
Oh, Karen, it's
So
Shondell
are
here.
there any questions?
Karen? Oh, sorry, it's Shondell here.
Hi, Shondell.
I just had a request, my little beef of the ones who are currently at Queen's College, specifically the teachers. In 2017, I was there for the prize giving function. And the list.
Shondell, could we, just in the interest of time, could we take that offline?
Oh.
And I will personally facilitate that conversation. Ryan, I apologize, but they're yelling at me, Ryan. So let's take the questions, and Shondell, we'll have that conversation. Ryan, any questions?
Okay, I see that Miss Cave is here as well, so we'd acknowledge her. Also, there's some questions. So was there bullying and how did administration deal with it? That was one of the questions. Then how was sexuality addressed, if it were at all? Someone else said that they were not there when the building burnt, when the school burnt, but our most defining moment was when the stand fell on Sports Day. Someone remembers mass games. In fact, I should let you, Karen, I'm not sure if you're going to have someone, if you're going to choose people to answer those questions. So let's go back to the top. Was there bullying and how did administration deal with it?
Could we bring in all of our panelists, first and second?
Oh, okay.
Or maybe we can't because of spotlighting issues. So
I'd be more interested in hearing from the younger women if there was bullying, because frankly, in our day, yes, there was. And nobody did call it bullying then. So I hope they call it bullying now and they address it. So I'd love to hear from the younger women if that's the case.
I can answer. In our time, yes, there was bullying. But it wasn't more so boys bullying girls. There were girls bullying girls. And when it was brought to the attention of the administration, parents were called in and they were assigned a counselor, and those that were bullying were actually counseled as well as those who were being bullied. And so I hope that that is what continued after I left, but that's what they did when I was there, when bullying arose. In terms of sexuality, I don't think we had an issue in terms of anyone coming out of the closet, but I would also say that at the time when we were there between 97 and 04, people didn't feel free enough to express themselves. And there were persons who might show tendencies, and there were cruel comments that came from peers, but it never elevated to the admin. And I feel it is because those kids who were being judged by whatever appearance or tendencies they had didn't want to acknowledge publicly or have the parents call in to have their sexuality defined at the time.
Thank you.
Okay.
Any other comments on that?
There's another one. If you were to compare Queen's College of today to 40 to 50 years ago, what are the key differences you see? And this can probably be one for Sheridan, I guess.
Yes, actually, to add to our previous question quickly, I actually remember that when I was in first form, I experienced a little bit of bullying from my female classmates as well. And really and truly, if you ask me today what was the reason behind it, I cannot remember. It was so frivolous. But in terms of how the admin handled it, because I remember it came to a point where like I was getting messages on my phone, and my mom at the time was very overprotective of me because I was her only child, and I come from a single parent family. So of course I had my mommy looking after me in certain aspects, and how the admin dealt with it, I think it was within guidelines of the Ministry of Education. Basically, the class teacher stepped in and like tried to understand what was going on. My classmates and I, we're good to this day, actually. I still talk to some of them when I see them at time. And we also were put into counseling. It was just like a one-off session of counseling. Because sometimes in life, when you are experiencing a new environment, people kind of feel threatened in a sense. Because I think the whole issue arose because I just came into this school with everyone, and then all of a sudden, I actually wasn't one of the top performers when I came in common entrance. I had 514 or something like that, and the top mark was like 526. So for me to come in now, I wasn't one of the top performers at common entrance, but I was still able to be the top performer of my class who had people that were in that top set. So it's like I overthrew them. And they were like, how is it that you come in with 514 and you're here outperforming us? And I think that was where the whole bullying thing arose, because they were just like, how? They never really expected that. And that was the expectation of girls, mind you. It was not just like a boy on girl thing. No, it wasn't like that. And in terms of how it has changed over the last 40 to 50 years, personally, the changes I'm seeing is the breakdown of that Eastern wing, I believe, the reconstruction of that, and them fully utilizing the new sixth form building, the revamp of all of the home ec department, the TD department, and I think we probably have like some new addition to the field. I haven't been home in a few months, so there's been a lot of changes within the past 2 years that I've left.
Thank you. Thank you. So I know there are tons of questions, and, we will probably need to reconvene to delve into some of these questions, right? So to have additional follow-up conversations. In the interest of time, I want to hand the baton back to Michelle. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, everyone, my esteemed panelists, for indulging me today. And I give it back to Michelle to continue.
Thank you so much, everyone. Thanks, Karen, and thank you to all the panelists. Let's show them some love with emojis. Absolutely. Very enlightening discussions. Okay, we now want to hear from the audience. We've got a question that Amala is going to put up using Menti. If you can just scan this QR code, or you can go to menti.com and enter those numbers, or we're going to also put this link in the chat. So let's hear from you. And the question is, when you think of girls' contributions to QC, what comes to mind? So that's that first question. And then there's going to be another one that says, what is one wish you have for QC? So Molly, if you can also drop the link in the chat, and we'll
Yes, I
hear
did.
all of our attendees want to answer those questions for us. When you think of girls' contributions to QC, what comes to mind? And then question number 2, what is one wish you have for QC? So while you complete that, we'll hear from our current principal, Miss Donna Lewis Isles, if we can find her and spotlight her for everyone to see. All right, I've asked her to start her video.
Yeah, need to unmute and need to start the video.
Yes. Yeah, you've got to. Ms. Isles, if you can start your video and unmute, you are up.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Go right ahead, ma'am.
We can hear you. Anyone hear the conversation? It was really fruitful, lots of knowledge. I just want to say to you, the only difference now is that we have 70% females and 30% males. So the dynamics has really changed in terms of staffing. We have far more females and we have all females at the top hem of leadership. So 50 years later, the ladies are really taking the lead. I really love the legacy that you would have set. We don't have much changes in terms of the culture. QC has set a rich culture, and so the culture and the legacy lives on. And so the children today, they are privileged, like many of the speakers would have said, that the girls don't have to really deal with bullying from the boys of such. What we would have done as administrators, we always try to address the issue as they occur. And now we have a counselor at the college, so you don't have to send them across to ministry. So if there's any issue, we have a counselor who can address immediately, and so that we can get help for both students and parents, because at times, some parents, sometimes they say they don't know the know-how to address issues. And so that is something we have been working on. The current PTA president, who is also an old student, Miss Ned, she's trying to have a parent forum where we can educate our parents with the know-how sometimes how to address teenage issues and the changes and so on. I heard someone ask a question about gender equality. Guyana is really changing rapidly, and so gender equality is something on the table that has been tabled, and I know that is something that will go to Parliament, where we will have everyone, and you're free to be whoever you would like to be, and that is something that's a work in progress. So you don't have much bullying in terms of your gender and so on. And so QC, I think, is in a good place, and I must say thanks to my board chairman and thanks to Miss Pauline Chase, who has been dynamic. Just to name a few. Just to name a few, there are all the QC students who have been working tirelessly to get things done for us. And so I want to say hats off to you, hats off to all the girls. I was privileged to work with Miss Ford. We worked together at St. Stanislaus College, and she would always give guidance as an old student of QC. And even when I was appointed to QC, she said, Miss, you are needed there. QC suits you, and so it's time. And so I just want to thank you all you are really and truly pace setters for all of us. And so I want to thank you for the hard work. I want to thank you for breaking the barriers for our students. And so today QC is where it is because of all of you. All of you took up the challenge. I love what the principal was saying earlier. You had a choice, but not really had a choice. But then you took that challenge on and you live up to that expectation. And so because of that, now our students can really enjoy the legacy. Other students don't have to try to break the barriers that you already did.
All right.
So you
Thank
really
you
set
so
that
much,
pace
Ms.
for us.
Isles.
And so I want to say thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We appreciate you for hopping on. Amala, do you have the quick results to show?
Unmute myself, yes.
So these are quick results here. We did a word cloud. So some of the things are breaking the mold, it changed the workforce, impossible to distinguish. Collaboration, strength, diversity, leadership, excellence is the main one. Empowerment, change makers, debate, ground shifting, resilience, breaking barriers, brilliance, completeness. Those are some of the things that came up. Awesome. And excellence just stands out. Look at that. Excellence stands out. Awesome, awesome, awesome. Thanks for that. We're gonna shift now to we've got to call up just a few more things before we wrap. We've got a call to action. We want to make sure that we continue the conversation from here. This is we don't want this to just be a one-time thing. So we've got a call to action to share. Yes, indeed. So Angela, if you could go to the next slide for me, please. All right, so after this discussion, we're hoping that people are energized, they're engaged, and we do realize that people had a lot to say and we were running out of time. Karen really couldn't get to all of the questions that she had. I couldn't get to all of the questions in the chat. So what we would like is for people to stay connected, share your story, and to help us build the future. As we celebrate 50 years of Girls at Queen's College, the journey does not end here. It continues with you. So what you can do, next slide, please, Angela. What you can do is ensure that you join your local Queen's College alumni chapter or help start one where you live. And so the ones that we know of that currently exist are in South Florida, and John Yates is the person who heads that one up. In Georgia, Dexter Owen heads that one. Alan Johnson heads the one in the DMV area. Neville Burke heads the Toronto chapter. Ian Wishart heads the London chapter. John Campbell heads the New York chapter, and Devindra Kissoon is our president of the Old Students Association in Guyana. You may have noticed that all of those are guys. So ladies, we've got some work to do still. All right, let's go on to the next slide. All right, so what you can do immediately is to share your QC story, add your voice to the digital archive, because we are going to have a digital magazine coming after this. It should be released in December, I think. You can contribute to the QC HERstory archive. We're welcoming photos. Join the Women of Queen's College Facebook group, and this is for alumni only, so Women of Queen's College. Follow any of the social media platforms on Facebook or Instagram, QCOSA, QCAANY. Just do searches for those and follow them. And then you can also support the next generation by being a mentor, being a volunteer, or sponsor a scholarship. Be a QC ambassador always. You might have noticed us with the scarves today. And someone did ask where you get the scarves. They're at the alumni room at the school. So please, that's where you can get them. Represent your QC spirit wherever you go. All right, thank you for joining. Thanks, Angela. All righty, thank you. And we're gonna have an event survey for you to give us your feedback. Felicia is now dropping it in the chat, so please complete that so we'll hear from you as we strive to do better in the future. We will now have some closing remarks from Larissa Wiltshire.
Good afternoon, everyone. As we come to the close of this panel discussion, I want to take a moment to express my deepest gratitude to each and every one of you. Your presence and insights today have taken us on a journey through the past. Your contributions have sparked conversations that will hopefully inspire those present with us today. It is important to acknowledge the past in order to make progress in the present and the future. I would like to highlight our panelists from panel 1. We have Ms. Corinne Love, Murphy Newton, Nadia Ramden, Dawn Stewart, and Shondell Nero. Panel 1B, Ronald Chase, Hugh Hamilton, Tony Harris. Highlighting some of the points they would have made during their discussion. They said some of the girls were nervous, unsure, intimidated, and didn't want to transfer from the Bishop's High School. Others were excited. The boys, of course, at that point in time were given no guidance, had very minimal expectations. Some of the girls had their friends from the Bishop's High School for comfort, and they also received encouragement from the faculty as well as Headmaster Trotz. And this allowed some of them to move from feeling rejected from the Bishop's High School to feeling comfortable at Queen's College. The integration took place in forms 1 to 3 and the 6th form. The 4th formers were not integrated. Some of the older boys were not as accepting of the girls and considered it a distraction. However, the younger boys were more concerned about the loss of some friends who had to move to the Bishop's High School, but were excited to interact with the girls. There was a note of the difference in value systems coming from the BHS, where a focus was on academics, yes, but also on finishing and how to be a young lady. Whereas at QC, there was a value for confidence, assertiveness, and academic excellence. All the teachers were female at the Bishop's High School, whereas there was a mix of staff at Queen's College. And these teachers expected academic excellence from everyone. There was an appreciation for the girls being able to attend the institution that produced so many great persons in society. The introduction of girls created a balance and great opportunities for leadership, and it was a great place for the coming together of persons from different backgrounds and different socioeconomic classes. Highlighting panel 2, Sheridan Dial, Nikita LaCruz, Desa Philadelphia, Lakshmi Ramparat, Alice Trotz. They spoke on what it meant to be a QC girl, and there was a recognition of the privilege to be had when it comes to the opportunities to be given at Queen's College. The school was a source of confidence and anxieties for some, and it was a place where persons discovered their greatest strengths and weaknesses. The students were nurtured to remain strong and confident and to be bold. There was an expectation of excellence. And the teachers in the earlier times were great role models, as well as some of the older girls to the new girls coming into the school. There were some boys who pushed back against girls in leadership and girls that were more academically inclined, and there was some competitiveness and healthy competition. More recent generations did not feel the pressure that pioneering girls had since they paved the way. Originally, there was also not much focus on sports for girls. However, there is more access now for girls in the area of sports. There wasn't an overt division between the boys and the girls. However, divisions did exist in other areas of class and race. And sometimes it was more difficult for persons who didn't fit the mold and were not as academically inclined. Currently, there are 70% females in the school and 30% males, and most of the top positions in leadership, as in the teachers, are mainly female. There is a shared sentiment that the contribution of girls to QC has been very impactful over the years and has paved the way for a successful future. The students now are able to enjoy a legacy set by those in the past. To our moderators, I would like to thank you for keeping us engaged throughout the event and ensuring all the items went smoothly. To our sponsors and organizers and Queen's College All Students Association, without your commitment and support, none of this would have been possible. You have helped create a space for reflection on our shared journey. To all attendees, thank you for showing up with curiosity and a positive energy. Whether you're a seasoned professional or a student just beginning your journey, your engagement has enriched this experience for everyone. As we return to our lives, classrooms, and communities, may we carry forward the knowledge we've gained and the connections we've made. Let's continue to elevate our standards and inspire the next generation. Let us commit to our motto, Fideles Ubique Utiles, as we represent the excellence of Queen's College throughout our lives. The impact of QC girls has been great and monumental over the last 50 years, and we will continue to break barriers and push boundaries for the betterment of our communities. So I'd like to thank you once again, and may you continue to be faithful and useful everywhere.
school song coming.
I'm not going to be the only one singing.
Yes.
And I refuse to be the only one singing.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you so much for
Thank
joining
you so much.
us. We'll
Thank you, Paul.
stay in touch.